I didn't cry when she left me at the altar. Not when she whispered, "I'm sorry," with trembling lips and eyes full of cowardice. Not when the guests gasped. Not when my mother clutched her pearls like they could hold my dignity together. Not when I stood there in a $5,000 dress that suddenly weighed like grief. I didn't cry, but I did stare at the door she disappeared through for a full minute after she ran, my veil slipping down, my breath shallow, my spine cracking under humiliation. My name is Noelle Hart, and the woman who broke my heart at the altar is Isabel DeWitt, the golden girl, the philanthropist's daughter. The woman I loved so much I gave up my job, my city, my goddamn identity to be what she needed. And today, under chandeliers and judgment, she ran. The silence in the church buzzed in my ears. Murmurs. Phones lighting up. I could hear her mother crying. Not for me, of course, but for the scandal. The embarrassment. That's when I felt the first ripple of anger. Cold. Deep. Bottomless. It wasn't the sadness that gutted me. It was the sheer audacity of it all. That she could do this to me and walk away like I was nothing. And then she walked in. Victoria Hale. 6 feet of ruthless elegance. In black. Not mourning. Not respecting. Defying. Everyone turned when the church doors slammed shut behind her. Her heels clicked slowly against the marble aisle, deliberate and sharp, like gunshots of judgment. Her eyes were fixed on me, not pitiful, not soft, but curious. Dark. Calculating. I hated her. Everyone did. Victoria was Isabel's nemesis. The CEO of Hale Industries, the woman who'd once humiliated Isabel in a boardroom and then smiled about it in Forbes. If you enjoyed this content and want to support the channel in a special way, try clicking the thanks button below. It's the one with the heart and $sign icon. With super thanks, you can make a direct contribution to the channel, which helps me keep creating awesome videos for you. She was icy, obscenely rich, and rumored to chew through lovers like wine tastings. So why the hell was she here? Well, she said, tilting her head, this is even messier than I expected. Her voice was low, decadent, and completely out of place in this moment of ruin. What the fuck are you doing here? I hissed, every nerve fraying. My hands were shaking. She smiled, slow and unkind. Watching her run. Again. There was venom in her words. Personal. And suddenly it clicked. She didn't just hate Isabel professionally. She hated her intimately. Get out, I said, trying to hold on to my last scrap of dignity. But she didn't move. She walked right up to the altar, where I was still standing, abandoned, broken bridal. She looked me over. Tell me, Noelle, do you want to make her pay? My breath caught. Excuse me? Marry me. It was so absurd I laughed. Right there, in the wreckage of my almost wedding, I laughed in her face. You're insane. Correct, she said smoothly, eyes burning into mine. But I'm also rich, vindictive, and deeply offended by what she just did. So marry me. Today. In front of them all. Let her see you in someone else's arms before the flowers even wilt. I opened my mouth. Closed it. My heart thundered. Was she serious? The worst part, she looked serious. She turned to the stunned guests. Efficient still here? She called. Noelle and I are getting married instead. A collective gasp rose, like something out of a soap opera. And in that moment, in my grief, in my fury, in my blistering desire to never feel like nothing again, I looked her in the eyes and said, Fine, let's do it. Victoria stepped closer, reached for my hand like she'd done it before, like it meant something. And when she looked down at me, something flickered in her expression. Victory. Curiosity. Maybe even something more dangerous. You're either brave or unhinged, she murmured. Guess we'll find out, I replied. And we got married. Right there. In front of everyone. In front of Isabel's empty seat. I didn't cry when the ring slid onto my finger. But I did look into the eyes of the woman who hated my ex, and maybe everyone else, and wondered what the hell I'd just done. Later, in her sleek car that smelled like leather and power, I sat frozen, still in my wedding dress, while Victoria poured herself a glass of champagne from the bar between the seats. "I have questions," I muttered. "You'll have answers. But first, we need a prenup. I don't like surprises." "This is all a surprise." "Not for me. I've been planning something like this since Isabel torpedoed my company's merger last year. You just made it poetic." I turned to her, heart clenching. "You used me?" "No," she said, sipping her drink. "But let's not pretend this is a fairy tale. This is revenge. For both of us." And as the city lights blurred by, and I sat beside the most dangerous woman I'd ever met, now legally my wife, I realized something. I hadn't stopped thinking about Isabel, but I was starting to think a lot more about Victoria Hale. Victoria Hale's penthouse wasn't just expensive. It was curated. Every inch of it felt like power. Dark marble floors, glass walls with a view of the entire skyline, steel and stone and silence. I stood barefoot on imported floors, still in the remains of a wedding that never was, as she disappeared into another room without so much as a backward glance. I didn't follow. I just stood there, shivering under a crystal chandelier I hadn't been invited to stand beneath. And then I saw it, a folder on the glass table, thick and pristine, with my name already typed on the front. My stomach twisted. Noelle Hart. A name that no longer meant anything. A name that had once belonged to someone with a future, a fiancé, a goddamn Pinterest board full of Mrs. DeWitt ideas. Now it was being written into something sharp and transactional. "Prenup," Victoria said, returning with a pen and 2 glasses of something amber and expensive. "Read it. Or don't. I don't care. But you'll sign it." I stared at her. "You really are a monster." She handed me the drink. "Only when necessary." And marrying me, was that necessary? You needed to be saved. I needed to make a point. Consider this mutually assured destruction. I sipped the drink. It burned beautifully. "You planned this." "I anticipated possibilities. You showed up to my wedding with a prenup already printed." Isabel has always been predictable. There was something in the way she said her name. Cool, yes, but edged with something darker. Personal. I opened the folder. The terms were simple, somehow more terrifying than if they'd been complicated. No claims on her fortune. No emotional entanglements. No expectations of intimacy. A 1-year marriage of convenience, renewable by mutual agreement, terminable at will. A clause for public appearances. A clause for discretion. And, most jarringly, a handwritten note at the bottom of the last page. Let her see what she threw away. And let her choke on it.
V.
I looked up slowly. "This isn't about me at all." "Don't flatter yourself," she said with a faint smirk. "But you're interesting. Braver than I expected. Or stupider. Same difference." I signed it. I don't know why. Maybe because I had nothing else. Maybe because the idea of Isabel seeing me in the arms of her enemy made the hollow in my chest feel a little less bottomless. Maybe because Victoria Hale had eyes like a storm and I didn't know what I wanted more, to hate her or to be seen by her. The pen clicked shut like a gun cocking.
"Good," she said.
"Now go shower. You smell like regret and roses." I should have been angry, but instead, I found myself obeying. Her guest bathroom was larger than my old apartment. The towels were Egyptian cotton. The shampoo probably cost more than my rent. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time after the water steamed the glass. Who was I now? A woman left at the altar? Or the woman who married power to hide the heartbreak? My reflection didn't answer. When I emerged, wearing a robe that nearly swallowed me whole, I found her in the kitchen, barefoot, hair down, slicing an apple like it owed her money. "I've scheduled a photo shoot for tomorrow morning," she said without looking at me. "Publicity." "Already? You're a story now, Noelle. The jilted bride who married her ex's worst enemy. The media's going to eat it up. And you're okay with that?" "I'm the villain, darling. I thrive in bad press." I leaned against the counter. "What happens now?" "Now we pretend." "Pretend to be married? Pretend to be in love." That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Pretending to love someone when you're still bleeding from the last one. It felt like drowning while smiling. You think people will believe it? I asked quietly.
She turned to me then.
Really looked at me. Her eyes dropped down my body and back up again, not lewd, but precise, like she was scanning me for weaknesses.
They'll believe it, she said.
Because I don't do anything halfway. Her hand reached out suddenly, brushing a wet strand of hair from my cheek. I flinched. She paused. Too soon. Too real. I muttered. She didn't apologize. Of course she didn't. Victoria Hale didn't do softness. But for half a second, her fingers lingered against my skin like maybe, she wasn't entirely made of steel. The next morning, the photo shoot team arrived at 8 a.m. sharp. Hair, makeup, a stylist who kept calling me Mrs. Hale, with a wink I didn't know how to return. Victoria was dressed in white. Crisp suit, silk blouse, and the kind of energy that made the entire room orbit around her. I was in a cream dress she'd had couriered from Paris overnight. It fit too perfectly, like she'd known my size, my shape, my presence. I look ridiculous, I murmured. You look expensive, she corrected, not even glancing at me. The photographer positioned us against the floor-to-ceiling windows. Closer, she kept saying. More romantic. Victoria slid an arm around my waist. Her fingers were cold against my hip. Touch her face, the photographer instructed. Victoria obeyed. Her hand cradled my jaw gently, her thumb grazing the corner of my mouth. I couldn't breathe. Now lean in, the photographer said. Like you're about to kiss. Our faces inched closer. I felt her breath, her perfume, her power. My heart stuttered. Stop, I said suddenly. I can't. The photographer backed off. Victoria dropped her hand instantly. Too much. I need a minute. I fled to the hallway, heart pounding. The truth was, it wasn't the idea of pretending that scared me. It was how real it already felt. I pressed my back to the wall and closed my eyes. I could still feel the ghost of her hand on my skin. Still hear her breath in that split second before closeness became something else. She followed me, eventually. Didn't say anything. Just stood there, watching me try to pull myself together. This is all too fast, I whispered. You don't have to do this, she said, softer than before. But if you do, you have to stop looking at me like I'm about to break you. I turned to her. And how do you want me to look at you? Her lips curled. Like I'm the woman who rescued you, not the one who's going to destroy you next. I stared at her, and in that moment, I didn't know which terrified me more, the woman who left me, or the one who just might make me forget her. That night, I found myself standing on the balcony of her penthouse, wrapped in one of her jackets, staring out at a city that felt too big and too fake. Behind me, Victoria poured herself another drink and joined me, wordless. We didn't speak for a while. Just stood there, two strangers bound by a signature and a spiteful idea. What did Isabel do to you? I asked eventually. She didn't answer at first. Just sipped. Then, she lied. She played the part of the sweet little heiress while gutting my deal from the inside out. Smiled at me while sticking the knife in. Sounds familiar, I muttered. Her eyes flicked to me. Noelle.
What?
When you kissed her, did it ever feel fake? The question hit me like a punch. No, I said. Never. Then I hope you remember that feeling when you kiss me. Because whether you mean it or not, the world's going to believe every second of it. I didn't respond. I couldn't. But my heart was already pounding for reasons I didn't want to name. The first time we kissed was in front of 100 people and 27 cameras.
It wasn't romantic.
It wasn't slow. It wasn't anything like the way Isabel used to kiss me. Soft, patient, always waiting for my breath to catch before hers did.
No.
This kiss was fire and performance, and something razor-sharp underneath the surface. It happened at the Gala for Women's Equity, an event Isabel was supposed to attend with me before she ruined everything. I hadn't planned to go. I wasn't ready. But Victoria had looked at me 3 nights before the gala, while we were sitting in her living room pretending not to watch each other, and said, "You'll wear red. I'll wear black." and we'll destroy her without ever speaking her name. I told her I wasn't ready. She said, "Good. That'll make your smile more convincing." The dress arrived the next day, scarlet, backless, slit to the thigh. I stared at it for hours before putting it on, my hands shaking. When I walked out into the living room, Victoria's eyes didn't move for a full 10 seconds. She didn't say I looked beautiful. Of course she didn't. She just said, "Perfect. She'll hate that she ever touched you." The gala was everything I dreaded. Glittering people with sharp tongues, lights too bright, conversations too fake. Victoria was poised, charming, deadly. I played the part, smiling at journalists, holding her hand like it belonged there. And then I saw her. Isabel. She was across the ballroom, in a pale blue dress, her hair pinned in the soft way I used to love. When her eyes landed on me, her face froze. And then, slowly, she noticed the hand in mine. The hand that belonged to the woman she hated most in the world. I felt her rage before she even moved. Felt the storm brewing across the marble floor. "She's coming," I whispered. "Good," Victoria replied. "Now kiss me." "What?" I turned to her. You said we didn't have to. We don't. But if she sees you hesitate, she'll win. You want her to think you've moved on." "I haven't." "Then pretend. Better than you ever have. Give her something to regret." I didn't have time to think. Isabel was 10 feet away. So I turned to Victoria Hale, my cold, calculated, vengeful wife, and kissed her. And she kissed me back like she was claiming territory. Her hand slid up my spine, fingers curling into my hair, mouth pressing into mine with a kind of hunger I hadn't expected. Not from her. Not from someone who was only pretending. But it felt real. Too real. I heard gasps around us, flashes going off, murmurs rising. I didn't pull away. I let it burn. I let it scorch every inch of the woman I used to be. When I finally stepped back, breathless, Isabel was gone. "Well," Victoria murmured against my ear, "that should make tomorrow's headlines." I stared at her. "Why did it feel like you meant that?" She shrugged, cool and unreadable. "Maybe I did. Maybe I'm just a very good actress." But her eyes lingered on my mouth for a moment too long, and I hated the way my heart reacted. We spent the rest of the evening attached at the hip. The cameras followed us everywhere. Every time I smiled, she squeezed my waist just slightly. Every time I looked overwhelmed, she leaned in and whispered something biting and ridiculous in my ear just to make me laugh. She didn't flirt, she commanded attention. And somehow, by proximity, I became part of that command. No one asked about the wedding. No one dared. But everyone wanted to know the same thing. Was it real? Were we real? And the longer the night went on, the less I could answer. After the event, we rode home in silence. The city passed us by like a dream I couldn't wake up from. "You didn't have to kiss me like that," I said finally. "You didn't have to kiss me back," she replied. I turned to her. Was it revenge or strategy? Why not both? She looked at me then, eyes sharp. "Don't get confused, Noelle. This is war. You kiss all your enemies like that? Only the ones I want to ruin." That should have made me feel safe. It didn't. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way her lips had felt, the way her hand had gripped me like she meant it, the way her mouth had parted just before I pulled away. I told myself it was just adrenaline, theater, trauma bonding. I told myself I didn't want her. But when I finally closed my eyes, I dreamed of her anyway. The next morning, I woke up to see the photos everywhere. Power couple. Hale and Hart take over the gala. Noelle Hart's stunning return. Victoria Hale's surprising soft side. I stared at one picture longer than I should have. The one where she was looking at me mid-laugh, something warm and almost tender in her expression. I hadn't even noticed it in the moment. I hated that I liked the way she looked at me in it. "You're trending," Victoria said from the kitchen island, phone in hand. "Of course I am. You kissed me like you wanted to eat me alive. You didn't seem to mind, because I was performing. You always make that face when you're performing?" "What face?" She walked over and held up her phone. There I was, smiling, blushing. lit up in a way I hadn't been in months.
That one, she said.
You're insufferable. You're glowing. You're delusional. She smiled, slow and knowing. You liked it. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words stuck. I turned away. Don't read into it, Victoria. Oh, I don't read. I see. Then see this, I snapped. You're still the last person I'd ever fall for. Her smirk didn't falter.
Good.
I'd hate for things to get complicated, but they were already complicated. Because every time she walked into the room, I noticed. Every time she touched me for the cameras, my pulse jumped. Every time she looked at me too long, I forgot what was real and what was the lie. That afternoon, Isabel called. I didn't answer, but I watched the screen flash with her name and felt the ache again, dull and bitter. I told myself she didn't deserve a response, that she'd already made her choice, that I was someone else now, someone who didn't beg, who didn't shatter, someone who kissed danger in public and let the world believe she was strong. But late that night, after the penthouse was dark and the city had fallen into its quiet hum, I found myself standing at the edge of Victoria's bed. I can't sleep, I whispered. She blinked at me from the pillows. Nightmares? Something like that. Get in. Excuse me? You're my wife. No one's watching. It's just sleep. Her voice was soft, a little hoarse from sleep. Not seductive. Just human. I hesitated. And then I climbed in beside her. I stayed on my side. She stayed on hers. We didn't touch. But I listened to her breathing, counted the rhythm, matched it. And for the first time in days, I fell asleep without dreaming of Isabel. I dreamed of nothing, just warmth and quiet and the unbearable awareness of the woman beside me. I didn't expect morning to come so quickly, or for Victoria's arm to be slung loosely across my waist, or for her breath to be warm against the back of my neck. I didn't move, didn't dare, because I was starting to realize that pretending with her might be the most dangerous thing I'd ever done. I didn't mean to stay in her bed. I meant to slip away before she woke, meant to pretend the night hadn't happened, that I hadn't let myself melt into the silence beside her, hadn't surrendered to the warmth of someone I was supposed to hate. But when I opened my eyes, the sun was already slipping through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and Victoria was still asleep, her face softer than I'd ever seen it, one hand curved against my hip like it belonged there. I lay still, caught in the weight of a moment I couldn't name. I should have pulled away. I didn't. I watched her breathe, memorized the slow rise and fall of her chest, the way a strand of dark hair curled against her cheek. She didn't look like a villain in sleep. She looked like a secret. She stirred then, brow twitching faintly before her eyes opened, slow, sharp, instantly alert. Her gaze found mine. Neither of us moved. How long have you been watching me? She asked, voice thick with sleep. Not long.
A lie.
She blinked once, then stretched, her fingers brushing my waist in a way that felt too deliberate. You're still here. So are you. It's my bed. It didn't feel like that last night. That made her pause. I wasn't sure why I said it. Maybe to challenge her. Maybe to wound. But she didn't respond with one of her sharp lines. She just stared at me. And then, softer than I expected. Did you sleep well? I nodded. First time in days. She exhaled, sat up, pushed the hair from her face. Good. She left the bed without another word. But the imprint of her hand on my skin stayed long after. The days that followed blurred into something I didn't have words for. We attended events, held hands, kissed on red carpets, whispered cruel little jokes into each other's ears just to make the other laugh while the cameras caught angles we pretended not to pose for. The world loved us. The internet obsessed over our story. And in private, I started forgetting which parts were pretend. I started noticing the way she always handed me the first cup of coffee in the morning without asking how I took it. The way she texted her assistant to cancel her meetings if I looked too tired to face another round of pretending. The way her fingers brushed my lower back when she thought no one was looking, not possessive, not performative, just there. One night, I walked into her office late, needing to ask about an interview we were doing the next day, and found her asleep on the couch, glasses on, laptop open, a document titled Public Statement, Heart Hail Merger.
I stared at it.
Not the words, but the meaning behind them. She was building something not just for show, something real. And that terrified me more than anything. You know, I said softly, waking her, you don't have to work so hard to make this look real. She stirred, sat up slowly, eyes heavy with exhaustion. I'm not doing it for them. Then who? Her answer came slower this time. Maybe I don't like losing. I walked over, sat beside her.
Close.
And if this isn't a game? She turned to me then, and something in her expression cracked just slightly. What if I wanted it to be real? My breath caught. You don't mean that. Don't I? Her hand brushed mine. No pressure. No audience. Just a simple touch. My fingers curled instinctively into hers. Victoria, Noel. My name on her lips sounded like something sacred. I looked at her. Really looked, and for the first time, I didn't see the woman who hated Isabel. I saw the one who'd stayed up planning interviews so I wouldn't have to face them alone, who kissed me like a weapon in public but looked at me like a secret in private. And before I could stop myself, I whispered, "Kiss me again." Her eyes flicked to my mouth. No cameras, no lies. She hesitated, just for a second, then leaned in. Her lips found mine like gravity. This kiss wasn't staged. It wasn't sharp or calculated. It was slow,
Deep.
reverent. Her hand came up to cup my face, and mine slid around her waist. We weren't pretending. We weren't performing. We were just two broken women kissing like they'd forgotten what it felt like to be wanted without conditions. When we pulled apart, her forehead rested against mine. I could feel her heart racing. I knew mine was too. What the hell are we doing? I whispered.
Falling, she said.
The next day, everything changed. Isabel showed up. Not on TV. Not in a headline. In person. At the Hale building. I was leaving a meeting when she appeared in the lobby, hair down, eyes wild, like she hadn't slept in days. "Noelle," she said, breathless. "We need to talk." My blood turned to ice. "You don't get to ask for that now. Please."
Why?
"So you can explain why you ran." I was scared. Of what?
Me?
Of marrying someone who actually loved you. Don't say it. I cut in, shaking. Don't you dare say it. People were watching. Security hovered. And then Victoria was there. Like she'd been summoned by the sound of my unraveling. "Is there a problem?" she asked, voice like steel. Isabel's eyes snapped to her. "This doesn't concern you. Everything concerning my wife concerns me." The word hit like a hammer. Wife. I didn't correct her. "She's not yours," Isabel hissed. "Is that what you told yourself when you ran?" Victoria stepped closer. "You don't get to rewrite the story, Isabel. You left her. You humiliated her. And now you want to crawl back because she's finally standing without you." "This isn't about you." "It never was. But it is now." I looked between them. Two women who had shaped me in completely different ways. One who broke me. One who put me back together without asking if I wanted to be whole again. "I'm done here," I said, voice steady. "Don't contact me again." I turned and walked away. Victoria fell into step beside me. We didn't speak until we reached the car. Then, softly, "Thank you." I looked at her. For what? For choosing me, even just this once. I shook my head. It's not just once. Her eyes met mine. There was no coldness there now, only something terrifyingly warm. Then I'm afraid of what happens next. Why? Because I don't pretend well when I start to care. I reached for her hand, laced our fingers together, then stopped pretending. And this time, it was me who kissed her. No audience, no cameras, just us. And I wasn't pretending either. It was supposed to be fake, a performance, a contract signed in heartbreak and defiance. But nothing about the way Victoria touched me felt fake anymore. Not the way she leaned into me when no one was watching. Not the way her fingers searched for mine in the dark. Not the way she kissed me like I was the last truth she believed in. Something was changing. Something I wasn't ready to name. I tried to convince myself that I was still in control. That this marriage was a tool, a shield, a statement. But every time she looked at me, really looked at me, something inside me unraveled. I wasn't used to being seen like that. Not even by Isabel. Especially not by Isabel. After the encounter at the Hale building, she didn't try to reach out again. But I could feel her lingering. In headlines. In gossip. In the stares I got from people who still whispered about the jilted bride turned power wife. And most of all, in my own mind. Because no matter how deeply I sank into Victoria, Isabel's ghost clung to the corners of my memory. But one night, I stopped thinking about her. Because Victoria touched me in a way no one ever had. We were on the rooftop, a rare, quiet evening between functions, press, and pretending. The city stretched around us like a living thing, full of light and breath and secrets. I was wearing one of her cashmere sweaters. She was drinking red wine from a glass I'd learned she preferred chipped. She said it kept her sharp. "You never talk about her," I said quietly. She glanced at me.
Who?
Isabel. Before me. Victoria leaned back against the railing, eyes distant. "There's nothing worth talking about. You cared about her once. Briefly. Stupidly. What happened? She used me." Her voice was colder now. Sharper. Told me she wanted to partner with Hale Industries. Said we could make history together. Then she went behind my back, leaked internal plans to my competitors, tanked the merger, and gave an interview smiling about how she outmaneuvered the devil. I swallowed. So, it really was revenge. At first. And now. She looked at me then. "Now I don't care about her. I care about you." My chest tightened. "Victoria, you don't have to say it back. I didn't ask you to, but don't pretend you don't feel it too." I didn't. I couldn't. I didn't know what it was. But that night, she kissed me softly. Like she didn't want to win anything. Like she just wanted me. And I let her. I let her touch me. Hold me. I let her take off my sweater. Her fingers slow and reverent. Her mouth moving down my skin like it belonged there. And for the first time since the day I stood alone at the altar, I didn't feel broken. I felt wanted. I felt seen. I felt new. Afterward, I lay tangled in her sheets, her arms wrapped around me, her heartbeat steady against my back. "What happens when this isn't temporary anymore?" I whispered. She was silent for a long time. Then we tear up the contract. And if I'm scared, then I wait. I won't ask you for more than you can give. I turned in her arms, pressed my forehead to hers. "You already have more than I meant to give you." She didn't smile, didn't gloat, just kissed me again, softer this time. But the peace didn't last. Because 2 days later, I received an invitation. A wedding. Isabel's sister. The ceremony would be intimate. Family only. Except for me. Apparently, I was still considered family. I stared at the card for a long time. I didn't tell Victoria. Not at first. But the longer I waited, the heavier the lie felt. Finally, I placed it on the kitchen counter one morning while she read the news. "It came yesterday." She picked it up. "Read it." Her face didn't change. "You're not going. It's not about her. Everything involving that family is about her. Her sister and I were close. Before she humiliated you. Before she left you standing in a church full of strangers and silence." I bit my lip. I don't want to be scared of showing up. Victoria stared at me. "Do you want to see her again?" "No, I meant it. But I want her to see me." That changed something in her eyes. Approval, maybe.
Pride.
She nodded slowly. "Then I'm coming with you." "You don't have to." "I know." She reached for me.
Took my hand.
"But I want to be there when she realizes what she lost." The day of the wedding was warm and overcast. Victoria wore navy. I wore soft gold. We arrived just as the ceremony was ending, guests trickling into the garden for the reception. I saw Isabel before she saw me. She was standing near the champagne table, hair pinned in soft curls, laughing at something a cousin said. When her eyes landed on me, the laugh died. Victoria didn't speak. just slid her arm around my waist and kissed my temple. And I could feel the exact moment Isabel broke. She walked over slowly, face pale. "You came," she said. "I was invited. I didn't think you'd accept. I didn't think you'd run. But here we are." Her eyes flicked to Victoria. "This still an act?" Victoria's voice was velvet and venom. "Do you always assume love is a performance? Is that what this is? Love." I looked at her, really looked, and suddenly, all I saw was the girl who ran, who left me, who looked me in the eye and said she couldn't do it, not because she didn't love me, but because she loved herself more. "Yes," I said. "It is." Victoria's arm tightened around me, and for once, I didn't feel like I was faking anything. Later, as we danced in the garden, the fairy lights glowing above us, Victoria pulled me close and whispered, "You destroyed her." I shook my head. "She destroyed herself. She never deserved you. And you do." I teased, even though the question was only half a joke. Victoria didn't laugh. "I don't know,
But I want to.
I want to be worthy of this, of you." My heart ached, because I'd never heard her sound unsure of anything before. I cupped her face. "Then stop proving things to her. Start proving them to me." She kissed me then, not to be seen, not to hurt, but to hold.
To claim. To keep.
That night, as she undressed me slowly in her bedroom, her hands shaking just slightly, I realized something terrifying and beautiful at once. I wasn't pretending anymore, and neither was she. We didn't talk about love. Not out loud. Not in words that could be taken back or used as weapons. But we lived like we were in it. Our mornings started with soft glances over coffee and her fingers brushing my wrist when she passed me a slice of toast. Our days blurred together in shared meetings, rehearsed affection turned instinct, and unexpected silences that felt more intimate than any kiss. And, at night, we stopped pretending. We kissed with mouths hungry to forget, to forgive, to feel something we could never admit. She touched me like she was trying to memorize every breath. I touched her like I was terrified I'd never be allowed to again. But we never said it. Not once. Because if we did, the spell might break. It was easier to move in shadows than to light a match and risk everything burning down. It had been 2 weeks since Isabel's sister's wedding. 2 weeks since I watched the woman who abandoned me look into the face of the one who refused to let me fall. Since then, I hadn't thought about Isabel the same way. I hadn't dreamed of her. I didn't flinch when I saw old photos. I didn't feel the weight in my chest when someone mentioned her name. I had replaced her, not with revenge, but with something startlingly close to hope, until the letter arrived. It was slipped under our door late one evening while Victoria was in a meeting. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name on the front in delicate, careful script I recognized instantly. Isabel. I held it for a long time before opening it. I told myself it wouldn't matter, that she had no power anymore. But as my fingers broke the seal, I felt that old ache bloom in my throat. It wasn't long. Just 3 lines. "I know you think I ran because I didn't love you, but the truth is worse. I loved you too much to ruin you. I'll always be sorry." I read it again. And again. The words didn't change. But something inside me did. Because for the first time since that day, I didn't feel rage or grief or even longing. I felt confusion. I didn't know if she was lying or if she actually believed what she'd written. I didn't know what it meant, if it even mattered anymore. I didn't tell Victoria right away. But I should have. Because 2 days later, she found it. She didn't say anything at first. I walked into the bedroom to see her holding it in her hand, her eyes moving across the page slowly, her expression unreadable. "You kept it," she said, voice low. "I didn't know what to do with it. So you hid it." "No, don't lie to me." I wasn't lying. I just didn't know how to explain it. Explain what? That you still needed to hear from her? That some part of you still wanted her to reach out? It's not like that. Then what is it like, Noelle? Because I wake up beside you every morning. I fight beside you in public. I kiss you like I mean it because I do. And you're still chasing ghosts. I'm not chasing anything.
She left this.
I didn't ask for it. But you read it. You kept it. And you didn't tell me. I crossed the room, trying to reach her, but she stepped back. Victoria, I don't want to be second choice. You're not. Then prove it.
How?
Her eyes burned into mine. Tell me that what we have is real. I hesitated, not because I didn't know, but because I did.
And it terrified me.
It's real, I whispered. Then say it. My voice cracked. Say what? That you don't love her anymore. I looked at her, at the woman who took me in at my lowest, who kissed me with fire and touched me like I was more than a scar, who made me feel like the version of myself I thought had died the day Isabel ran. I don't love her, I said. Not anymore. Her chest rose, then fell. And me. I'm falling for you. The silence stretched. Then she dropped the letter and crossed the space between us. Her hands found my face. Her lips crashed into mine like a wave. And this kiss, this one, wasn't about possession or proof. It was about surrender. We made love that night like we were trying to write over every memory that had ever hurt. There was no rush, no desperation, just mouths tracing stories across skin, fingers relearning, eyes holding. When she pushed into me, I gasped, not from shock, but from the sudden, overwhelming knowledge that I'd never wanted anyone else like this. That I'd never be able to want anyone else again. She held me after, her breath still uneven, her hand tracing lazy circles across my hip. You scare the hell out of me, she whispered. Why? Because I've never wanted something I couldn't control. I turned in her arms. Do you want to control me? No, she looked at me. I want to be enough for you that I don't have to. You are. The next morning, we ripped up the contract. Together. In the kitchen, over coffee, without ceremony. She handed me the final page. I held it tight, looked into her eyes, and tore it down the middle. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the fear. But it was a beginning. That day, Victoria cleared her schedule. Said she needed to take me somewhere. I expected a dinner. Maybe a trip. I didn't expect her childhood home. It was a quiet place by the coast. Tall windows, creaking floors, the smell of old books and sea salt. She showed me the room she grew up in. The broken fence she used to sneak through. The tree where she'd carved her initials alone because no one else ever came to visit. I wanted you to know who I was before I became this, she said, her voice soft. You were a girl who wanted to be loved. I became a woman who refused to be hurt. And now, she looked at me. Now I think I'm becoming something else. Because of you. I walked to her, wrapped my arms around her waist. We're both becoming something else. Together? If you'll let me. She kissed me then, under the same tree where she once carved her name into bark. But this time, she wasn't alone. And neither was I. The day after we tore up the contract, something shifted. It wasn't visible. There was no announcement, no grand confession. But it lived in the space between our glances, in the way she touched the small of my back when we walked into a room, in the way I reached for her hand without thinking. We weren't pretending anymore. There was no script, no line to follow. Just a woman who had once been heartbroken and another who had once been heartless, now standing face to face, building something fragile and real out of the wreckage they'd both survived. And it was terrifying, because loving Victoria Hale was like holding fire, brilliant, beautiful, and entirely capable of destroying me if I wasn't careful. But I didn't want careful anymore. I wanted her, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid to want boldly. We returned to the city the next morning, back to meetings, headlines, whispers, and elevators. But everything was different now. I could feel her eyes on me during press conferences. She smiled more, touched more, laughed when I teased her. An actual laugh, not the controlled corporate smirk the media worshipped. I started to see the woman beneath the armor. The one who still slept with a soft blanket hidden under her bed because it reminded her of a childhood before she taught herself not to need comfort. The one who made me breakfast without asking just to see my smile. The one who kissed my shoulder absentmindedly while reviewing contracts like my skin was her favorite kind of distraction. We were becoming something neither of us had expected. But the world wasn't ready to let us breathe. It never is. One afternoon, I was walking into the Hale headquarters when I felt the energy in the building snap. Something was wrong. Whispers rippled down hallways. Assistants averted their eyes. When I reached Victoria's office, she was standing at the window, phone in hand, jaw clenched so tightly I could see the vein pulsing in her neck. "What happened?" I asked. She didn't turn around. "Someone leaked the prenup." My stomach dropped. "What?" "It's online. The entire agreement. Terms, signatures, the clause about public appearances, the expiration date. Everything." I froze. "Who would, Isabel?" She turned then, her eyes like ice. "She had access. She was the witness on your side when you signed. Her father's firm handled the preliminary filings. You think I know she did. And now the media is spinning the whole thing. Headlines calling us a PR stunt. That our marriage was a revenge act gone too far. That I paid you. That you were my pawn." I felt the panic rising in my chest. But it's not true anymore. They don't care. They never care. All they need is a whiff of scandal and suddenly the truth is irrelevant. I reached for her. "Then we tell them. We hold a press conference. Tell the world the contract ended, that we chose each other after that." But she pulled away. "You think they'll believe you? You think they'll look at you, the jilted bride who jumped into the arms of her ex's rival, and see anything but desperation? Don't do that." "Do what?" "Push me away because you're afraid." "I'm not afraid." "Yes, you are." I moved closer, forcing her to meet my gaze. "You think if you love me out loud, they'll use it against you. You think loving me makes you vulnerable." Her eyes flared. "It does make me vulnerable. You make me weak, Noelle." "Then be weak with me. For once in your life, let someone see you bleed and stay anyway." Her breath hitched, but she didn't speak, and the silence felt louder than any argument we'd ever had. That night, she didn't come home. I stayed up waiting, pacing the apartment, watching the city darken and wondering if she'd run too, not out of fear of me, but fear of us. When the door finally opened at 2 a.m., she looked exhausted. Her coat was soaked from rain. Her hair clung to her cheek, but her eyes locked onto mine instantly, and I saw it there. The storm behind her ribs she didn't know how to calm. "Where were you?" I asked, trying to decide if I could survive losing you. My voice broke. "Don't you dare leave." "I'm not leaving." She stepped inside, closed the door behind her, walked straight to me. "I'm trying to figure out how to be worthy of you when the world is watching and sharpening their knives." I touched her face. "I don't need you to be worthy. I need you to be honest. I don't know how to be anything else around you." She kissed me then, not desperate, not angry, just achingly slow. I melted into her, because even when she was unraveling, she never let me fall. The next morning, I made the decision for both of us. I scheduled a live interview with the biggest news network in the city. When I told Victoria, she blinked. "You what?"
"We need to speak. Publicly.
"Together. And I'm not letting you do it alone." "You think a single interview will change the narrative?" "I think our truth will. If we say it out loud. If we stop hiding." Her silence was long. But then, quietly, she said, "Then I'll stand beside you." The day of the interview, I was shaking. Not from nerves, but from how much this meant. Victoria held my hand backstage. Didn't speak. Just pressed her fingers into mine until the cameras turned on. And then we told the world. We told them how it started, how it changed, how the contract ended, and we stayed. How falling in love with each other was the only thing that hadn't been planned. "So this is real?" the reporter asked, skeptical. Victoria turned to me, and in front of millions, she said, "I married Noelle to make a point, but I stayed because she made me believe in things I'd buried. I love her. I don't care who believes it." My heart stopped. My throat closed. But I didn't hesitate. I love her too. The interview ended. The headlines changed.
Not instantly, not all of them.
But enough. And that night, as we lay in bed with the windows open and the wind curling around our bare skin, I whispered, "You said I make you weak." "You do. Then let me protect you too." She looked at me and I saw it, the surrender. Not of power, but of fear. "Then fight for me," she said. "Always," I whispered. And I meant it. For 48 hours, we were untouchable. The interview had gone viral. Enemies to wives. The wildest romance of the year. Victoria Hale breaks her silence, and her Ice Queen reputation. Noelle Hart deserves a standing ovation and a crown. I should have felt vindicated. I should have felt safe. But the thing about peace is that it makes you soft, and softness is exactly what people wait for when they want to strike. The first sign came quietly. A rumor about Hale Industries surfaced. Something about illegal offshore holdings, shady partnerships in Eastern Europe, an old acquisition that hadn't passed ethical due diligence. I knew it was bullshit the second I saw the headline. Victoria kept meticulous records. She was ruthless, but never reckless. But the internet didn't care. People shared it.
Commented.
Spun new stories out of shadows. And then the subpoenas came. Her legal team moved quickly, but the damage was instant. Stocks dropped. Investors pulled back. And every new headline painted her not as a CEO, not as a woman, but as a villain. "They're trying to bury you," I said as we sat in her office, the blinds drawn, the news blaring in the background. Victoria didn't respond. She just stared at the table, her jaw tight, her hands still. I'd never seen her look like that, not broken, but hollow. Like she was trying not to show how close she was to shattering. "You knew this would happen," I said. "After the interview. After we told the truth." "I hoped it wouldn't," she replied quietly. "But yes, I knew." "Then why did you do it?" "Because I'd rather lose everything than keep hiding you." That broke something in me. I crossed the room, dropped to my knees in front of her, took her cold hands in mine. "You won't lose me." Her eyes flicked up to mine. "But what if you lose everything else? Then I'll help you build it again, brick by brick. Burn the whole empire down, and we'll rebuild it in our name." Her hands gripped mine tighter. "They'll come after you too. Let them. You don't understand. They're digging now. Through my past. Yours. Looking for anything to use. Every X. Every whisper. Every vulnerability. Then we face it. Together." But I didn't realize how true that would become until the next hit landed, and this time, it was aimed at me. An anonymous blog post surfaced claiming I had cheated on Isabel months before our wedding. There were fake screenshots, fabricated DMs, twisted half-truths pulled from conversations taken out of context. Suddenly, I wasn't just the poor, abandoned bride. I was the manipulator, the fake, the opportunist who'd always had one eye on Victoria Hale's throne. I stared at the screen in disbelief. "This isn't real." "I know," Victoria said, "but it won't matter. The story's already out." Why would they do this now? Because they need to divide us. Turn us into enemies again. Make us easier to tear apart.
Who?
Her voice was razor sharp. "Isabel. You really think she'd sink that low? She's drowning, Noelle. Of course she would." I swallowed the lump in my throat. Then what do? We don't respond. We hold the line. And we wait for it to burn itself out. But the damage was done. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Old friends texted me, asking if it was true. My parents, who had finally started speaking to me again after months of silence, left a voice message full of disappointment and confusion. Victoria tried to shield me. She locked down the apartment, called in favors, pulled every string she had. But I could see the weight it was putting on her. The guilt, the exhaustion, the fury. One night, I found her in the living room, sitting in the dark, a glass of whiskey in her hand, staring at nothing. "I never wanted this to touch you," she said. "You didn't bring this on me." "Yes, I did. The second I pulled you into my war with Isabel, I thought I could protect you from it." I sat beside her. "I'm not asking you to protect me. I'm asking you to stand with me. You don't get it." Her voice cracked. "You're the best thing I've ever had. And now the world is trying to take you away from me. I reached for her glass, set it aside, then cupped her face in my hands. They can't take me. Not unless you let them. Her eyes glistened. Noelle. I love you. I know. Say it back. I love you. I've loved you since the day you said, fine, let's do it, and made everyone in that church question whether you were the most heartbroken woman alive or the most dangerous. I smiled, even through the tears. Turns out I was both. God, you're perfect. Not perfect. Just brave. She kissed me then, slow, desperate, full of everything she didn't know how to say. That night, I stayed wrapped in her arms and made a decision. I wouldn't hide anymore. I wouldn't cower. I'd speak for myself. So the next morning, I recorded a video.
Just me.
No makeup. No script. Just the truth. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I didn't use Victoria Hale to get revenge. I fell in love with her. We started as a storm, but we've become something else, something honest. If you don't believe that, I'm not here to convince you. I'm here to live it. We posted it together. We watched the comments roll in. Some were cruel. Some doubted. But many believed. And for the first time, I felt like I'd taken something back. The next day, the blog post was taken down. The user deleted. No explanation. But Victoria knew. She's backing off, she said. Why? Because she lost. We were in her office when she said it. I was perched on the edge of her desk. She stood between my legs, her hands on my thighs, her lips close to mine. You're not her anymore, she whispered. You're mine. Yours, I echoed. And you're mine. Always. But just as I leaned in to kiss her, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it.
Froze.
What is it? I asked. She showed me the screen. An email. Anonymous. A subject line that sent ice through my veins. There's more you don't know about Isabel. And you're not the only one she left behind. We stared at it. Neither of us spoke. Because we both knew this wasn't over. And some truths might still be waiting in the dark, ready to tear everything apart. But I also knew this. I wouldn't run. Not again. Not ever. Not if she was still beside me. The subject line haunted me. There's more you don't know about Isabel. And you're not the only one she left behind. Victoria hadn't moved for a full minute after reading it. Her grip on the phone was tight, her knuckles pale. I could feel the tension radiating off her in waves, not anger. Something colder. Something closer to dread. Do you think it's real? I asked finally. She didn't look at me when she said, yes. I sat up straighter. Then open it. No, Victoria. If we open that, we can't unknow it. We can't put the monster back in the closet. It's already out. You said it yourself, she's not finished. Victoria slowly sat beside me, phone still in hand, the screen casting a pale glow over her face. What if it's something you can't forgive? Then I won't forgive her. But don't you dare assume I'd walk away from you. She looked at me then, really looked, and the fear in her eyes wasn't for herself. It was for me. She was scared that whatever Isabel had done would somehow infect us, tear through the fragile trust we'd built and ruin it before we could hold it long enough to call it safe. I reached for her hand. We read it together. So she opened the email. No text. Just a video attachment. 34 seconds long. Victoria tapped play. The footage was shaky, clearly shot from a phone, but the image was clear enough. Isabel, sitting on a hospital bed, her hair messy, mascara streaked down her cheeks. A date in the corner. 7 months ago. The night before she left me at the altar. A man sat beside her, holding her hand. He looked scared. She looked shattered. I can't do it, Isabel whispered in the video. She deserves someone better. Someone who hasn't been keeping a secret this big. I thought I could carry it, but I can't. You don't have to do this alone, the man said. It's not just about me anymore, she replied. It's about the baby. My heart stopped. The screen went black. I couldn't move.
Couldn't speak.
I was suddenly frozen in a world where gravity no longer worked. A baby. Isabel had been pregnant. 7 months ago. the night before our wedding, and she hadn't said a word. Noelle. Victoria's voice was careful. Talk to me. She didn't tell me. I know. She was going to marry me, and she didn't tell me. Noelle. Was it mine? I asked, voice small, afraid of my own question. Could it have been? You said you hadn't been intimate for months before the wedding. We hadn't. Then it wasn't yours. I stood, walked to the window, trying to breathe. The city looked surreal through the glass.
Distant.
Unreachable. She was pregnant, and she still planned to go through with the wedding. Until she didn't. She lied to me. She's been lying for a long time. But why now? Because we're happy. Because she's losing control. I turned to Victoria. There's a child. And it's not your responsibility. But it should have been my decision to make. She took that from you. Just like she took your choice at the altar. My hands were shaking. Victoria crossed the room, wrapped her arms around me from behind, rested her chin on my shoulder. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. What if she comes forward? Then we deal with it. Together? Always. I leaned back into her, trying to keep my body steady, trying to hold on to the truth I did have, the one that felt like home, like safety, like real love that didn't ask me to shrink. I'm not mad that she was pregnant, I said. I'm mad she thought I wasn't strong enough to choose her anyway. You would have married her even with a child? I don't know. But I would have deserved the truth. We could have figured it out. Or maybe I would have left. But she never gave me the chance. We didn't sleep that night. We stayed curled up on the couch, wrapped in silence, the kind that doesn't ask for conversation, only presence. In the morning, my phone rang. I stared at the screen. Isabel. I didn't answer. I let it ring, and when it went to voicemail, I watched the screen go dark. Do you want to know what she says? Victoria asked. Not yet. Good. Because I don't want her voice in my head right now. What do you want? I turned to her. You. That night, I asked her to take me somewhere quiet. We drove 2 hours outside the city to a cabin she owned but hadn't visited in years. She said she bought it after her first real heartbreak and never had the courage to stay in it. I told her it was time to reclaim it. And that night, under stars neither of us had looked at in too long, I took her hand and said, no more fear. No more ghosts. No more pretending this isn't everything. She didn't cry. Victoria Hale didn't cry. But her breath caught, and she looked at me like I was giving her something she hadn't dared believe she could have. I don't know how to be soft, she whispered. Then let me show you. We made love by the fire. No masks. No barriers. Just two women who had burned for too long and finally found a place to rest. And when it was over, when the world was quiet again, she whispered, don't let go of me. And I answered, I never will. But even in that warmth, even in that promise, I felt it. The tension, the crack. The story wasn't finished yet. And the next page could still break us if we let it. The silence between us wasn't distance. It was weight. The kind that settles in once the storm passes and you're left holding the wreckage and wondering if the roof will still hold. The revelation of Isabel's pregnancy should have destroyed me. Months ago, it would have. It would have shattered everything I thought I knew about her, about love, about myself. But it didn't.
Not now.
Not with Victoria's arms around me, her breath steady against my skin, her heartbeat syncing with mine like it had found a rhythm it never wanted to lose. We spent 2 full days at the cabin. No phones, no press, no talk of the child or the contract or the media still spinning stories from a war they didn't understand. Just us, making meals in silence that turned to soft laughter, watching the fire burn low, then reigniting it with hands that trembled not from fear, but from something tender. She asked me to dance in the living room once, barefoot, her cheek against mine, humming a song neither of us knew. And when she looked at me, she didn't say, I love you. She said, don't disappear. And I understood. She meant, don't turn into someone I can't reach, even when you're right in front of me. And I promised her I wouldn't, but we couldn't hide forever. On the 3rd day, my phone had 17 missed calls. From my mother. from former friends, from journalists, and 3 voicemails from Isabel. I played one.
Just one.
Her voice was strained. Noelle, I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared. I still am. It wasn't about not loving you. It was about knowing that I'd already betrayed you before you ever walked down the aisle. And when I saw myself in the mirror that morning, I realized I didn't deserve you. I wanted to, but I couldn't pretend. And I'm sorry. For all of it. I didn't play the others. I didn't need to. Victoria listened in silence. Her face unreadable. Do you want to talk to her? She asked. No. Are you sure? Yes. Why? I turned to her. Because she doesn't get to explain this away. Because forgiveness doesn't mean she gets me back. You forgive her? Eventually. Maybe. But not for her. For me. Victoria exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath. What happens now? Now we go home. The return to the city was quieter than expected. The scandal was still echoing, but we were no longer the headline. Another celebrity divorce had taken center stage. The world had moved on, as it always does, while we were still stitching ourselves back together in private. But something had changed between us. Something solidified. We no longer asked each other, are we doing this? The question had become, how do we protect it? Days passed. Then weeks. We moved through the world as a couple no longer defined by revenge or headlines. She introduced me at events as her partner. I placed her hand on my thigh at dinners without fear of who was watching. And one night, 2 months after the video leaked, after the interview, after the email, after the truth, Victoria invited me to a small art gallery. No press. Just a quiet evening, private, just us. I didn't ask why. I went. And when we arrived, I understood. The lights were dim. The space was empty except for a single spotlight in the center of the gallery. And under it, a canvas. A painting.
Of me.
Not literal, not photorealistic, but abstract. Vivid, red and gold and dark blue. My chaos, my fire, my sadness, my joy. I walked toward it slowly, speechless. You painted this? I asked, barely breathing. I commissioned it, she said behind me. I told the artist to paint what I see when I look at you. I turned to her. She was wearing black. Simple. Elegant. But her eyes were fire. Victoria, I was going to do something big. Something ridiculous. Champagne and cameras and rose petals. But you don't need a stage. You are one. My chest tightened. What are you doing? Something I never thought I'd be brave enough to do again. She stepped closer, reached into her coat, pulled out a ring. Not gold, not flashy. A band of midnight stone, simple and breathtaking. I married you in anger. I kissed you for revenge. I held you for survival. But I stayed because I fell in love with the sound of your laugh, and the way you never back down, and the way you make me feel like I was never meant to be alone. So I'm asking you, really asking you, without contracts, without press, without anything to prove but my heart, will you marry me again? My knees nearly gave out. I stared at her, at this woman I'd once thought was made of ice, now burning in front of me, offering me something no one else ever had, a choice, freely given, no strings, no lies. I didn't hesitate. I didn't blink. I stepped into her arms, pulled her close, and whispered against her mouth, yes. She slid the ring onto my finger, hands shaking. You're mine now. I've always been yours. We didn't tell anyone right away. Not our parents, not the media, not even her assistant. It was just ours for a little while. A secret wedding, barefoot on a beach 3 weeks later. Just us and a woman in linen who spoke soft vows over the wind. I wore white again. This time I smiled all the way through it. This time no one ran. She kissed me like she already knew every version of forever we'd ever live. Afterward, we lay tangled in sheets, the sea humming outside, her fingers tracing the ring on my hand. Do you ever think about the beginning? She asked. The altar? Yes. Sometimes. But not the way I used to. How do you think of it now? I turned to her, touched her face. as the moment everything had to fall apart, so I could find you. She didn't answer with words. She kissed me, and I realized in that moment that no one would ever make me feel like this again. And I would never let them try, because she didn't just love me. She saw me, she chose me, and I chose her. Every time. Thank you so much for your support, whether it's by liking, commenting, sharing, or sending your super thanks. You make all the difference here on the channel. See you in the next video.